So when my husband and I decided we wanted to try for a baby, this is what my lifestyle looked like. I was exercising 7 times a week, sometimes twice a day, training for triathlons. My job was pretty stressful. I'd been on the contraceptive pill for over 10 years, so I had no idea what my natural monthly cycle would be like, let alone knowing when or if I was ovulating. And what I know now to be the most damaging from my story is I had eliminated almost all fat in my diet, which was not only pretty much what I had been taught in my nutrition degree, but what at the time I also believed was the solution to health and weight loss. So how wrong was I? And no wonder I couldn't conceive. My body was undernourished, hormonally flat, and therefore my body had pretty much instinctively shut down my reproductive system as a protective measure in a stressful environment. So I'm Natalie Coghlan, I'm a nutritionist and fertility specialist, and I now help busy women who are trying to conceive to eat better, transform their bodies into the best fertile health to increase their chances of becoming a mum. And I hope I bring hope that with education, empowerment and support in eating real foods and lifestyle changes, every woman trying to conceive can naturally restore control over their fertility. So my story could start in a few places, but ultimately each stage led me to finding the root cause of my infertility and working out how to repair myself to become a mum of these two. So I enrolled on a degree in exercise, nutrition and health. This is back in 2004. Reason because I had become more and more interested in my own personal health and fitness. I wanted to know how to lose weight. That was my primary driver. And also because I had been bitten by the running bug and found I was often asking myself, why am I slugging my guts out during a run to ruin all this hard work with loads of unhealthy foods? And surely exercising would become easier if I ate better. So I wanted to know more. I was curious. So fast forward 3 years, a first class degree in nutrition, and nutrition had overtaken my life. Luckily, I always had a willing guinea pig, free of charge, right on hand, myself. And I make the point of recommending foods and recipes to people that I have tried and tested, especially these days when we are surrounded by an abundance of food choice with endless research, churning out conflicting nutrition advice. And the one comment that I still hear repeatedly to this day is, one day we're told we can eat avocados, the next day we're told they're too high in fat, will lead to heart disease. The classic conflictions. And I agree, so it's a challenge to understand what we should or shouldn't be eating. And so we default to our government dietary guidelines. We're good at following these guidelines. The data does show that, but is this making people healthier? These are the questions I had at the time. So we all know the answer to that here in this room, but I was still on the journey to working that out. My first job after uni was creating family weight management programs, and this very quickly led me to wanting to find more answers to questions such as, why is our population getting fatter and at such a fast rate? Why are children becoming obese at the age of 5? Lifestyles have changed, we are using cars more, jobs are more sedentary, the availability of food has now increased to 24 hours a day, but is it as simple as we need to eat less and move more? It felt like a lot of changes was riding on willpower, and we blame ourselves if diets go wrong, but what if the dietary advice is wrong and we're all set up to get sicker and fatter? So alongside that job, I was also studying for a master's in obesity prevention and intervention, hoping to find these answers. And after 3 more years of study, I was left even more confused. Questions hadn't been answered, so I knew I had to start looking elsewhere. So fast forward 10 years, after starting my nutrition degree, we had quite a lifestyle change. We quit our jobs. Me and my husband moved out of London to start a new life near a family and hoping to start a family of our own. So like I said before the move, I was still training 7 times a week. I would track all my calories, macronutrients, log it all on the latest fitness app. because I was working in weight management, it meant I was fascinated with the classic calorie balance, calculating what my daily calorie intake should be, subtracting the calories, subtracting the calories to make sure that I was in negative energy balance. So I get frustrated when I wasn't losing weight at the time. Remember, my driver for understanding and getting into nutrition was, first of all, weight loss. So what was going on? When I reflect back on this time, I was pretty low in energy also. My skin was very dry, my nails weren't growing, I felt constantly hungry. It's pretty draining, constantly thinking about food when you know you've only eaten an hour ago. So along with this big life change, it gave me the fresh start I needed to overhaul my life, and I started to look at different avenues for more evidence bases. So I came across on Twitter at the time, Gary Taubes, Nina's Big Fat Surprise, and Jason Fung. They were my three main sources of information at the time. And what I realised quite quickly is all these experts had one common message, and that was sugar is making us unhealthy, but how? And I couldn't believe these books were supporting the intake of fat. And it's important to recap here how everything I had been taught up to that point was all about choosing low-fat foods, having high intakes of carbs, fibre, fruit and vegetables, some of which, of course, is still important, but which I think you'd agree most people understand as being the recommended healthy way to eat. So that was a big change for me, and just those few books opened up a completely new outlook on food and nutrition for me. And again, as my own personal guinea pig, I started on the path of changing my diet. So straight away, I eliminated foods that were very high in sugar. Not that I had an ultra-processed food diet, but the energy demands of the training that I was doing, I was hungry all the time. So it would be the pasta, beans, bread, that were the predominant sources of food in my diet. But I also took out some of the naturally occurring sugars in honey, most fruits, and the pasta and rice. So I was starting to find my answers, and the traditional dietary advice that I had been taught throughout my studies just didn't stack up. And I began to understand that gaining weight wasn't down to eating too much and not moving enough. So my eureka moment, as I described it, when I realised that I kept my carbs low and increased my fat, made sure I had enough protein, vegetables, just like our bodies have evolved to function on, we can find our own natural body weight, balance our hormones, and have an increased chance of thriving in life. So I started using full fat products, anti-inflammatory oils, cooking with butter, coconut oil, for example. I lost weight without a grueling exercise plan, and although I really enjoy exercise still, I fit exercise into my busy lifestyle rather than having to exercise to become in calorie deficit. And the feeling of guilt if I hadn't burnt off enough calories soon went, and I found my natural body weight, which doesn't take much conscious control to maintain when following my newfound dietary principles. And it sounds too good to be true. So at this same time, I started to move my own research into how I could improve my fertility. At the time, all I could find were nutritionists online talking about smoothies to help your fertility, or clinics describing their medical treatments. And I told myself I would try anything. You can get pretty desperate when you want to have a baby. So these are the easiest things that I first tried. Out went the toxins from my environment, like the scented candles, room diffusers, toiletries with chemicals and chemical fragrances. I knew my diet was balancing my blood sugar. I no longer was getting hangry, and I cut down quite a lot on caffeine and alcohol. So I was already 18 months into trying fertility medication at this point, so with no success. I was told there was no real reason why I wasn't ovulating. I can now pretty much understand how I was likely suffering from hypothalamic amenorrhea, where I had no period at all, and probably adrenal fatigue brought on by my previous poor, undernourished diet and stressed lifestyle. So we moved further down the medical routes, and we were told that IVF was really our best option. So even though my new diet and some environment changes had become consistent, probably for a period of 6 months, I was starting to see some positive effects in a few signs, like my hormones felt like they were starting to balance. But at the age of 32 at the time, I felt like time wasn't really on our side. And although these initial diet and lifestyle improvements weren't enough for us to avoid a medical treatment, I do genuinely believe that they helped my treatment become successful on the first attempt. And bearing in mind that most recent data tells us that the likelihood of IVF leading to a live birth for couples is just 32% if the woman is under 35. And that decreases as the woman gets older. So we were over the moon that it worked for us on our first attempt. So although the fertility process did work for us, I felt that my body could conceive naturally. And it was what I did between having my first and second child that made the biggest difference. So I took my diet and environment changes up another level. My diet and environment changes that I described previously remained consistent. I worked on managing my stress better. I brought in 16-hour intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating, so very minimal snacking in between 3, sometimes 2 meals a day. I even experimented with 2 24-hour fasts, which were great. I felt fantastic on them, and it probably is a coincidence, but I did fall pregnant naturally in the month that I did the 2 fasts in the first half of my cycle. And most importantly, I began to understand my monthly cycle better, learnt to look out for fertile signs through basal body temperature measuring first thing in the morning to understand the fluctuations that indicate my fertile window. So also within my diet, I took that up a notch and did actually go more lower carb. So looking at what that means and what I help my clients to understand now are what are the fertility-friendly foods and the dietary principles behind them. So first of all, out went the highly processed polyunsaturated oils, with oils that are lower in omega-6, like the olive oils, coconut oils, butter, avocado oils. I work with couples, predominantly women, to become comfortable with increasing the amount of fat they can eat on a daily basis. I so often hear, gosh, I can't believe I can eat that much food, let alone how much fat. Most women's bodies are chronically undernourished, and if they have been caught up in the low-fat way of eating, it's really important to help them become comfortable with having more fat in their diet. We fill up on good quality protein, whatever is the most affordable within their budget, and replace all refined, high carbohydrate containing foods with plenty of vegetables and a variety to ensure they're still receiving enough fibre, water, and our base vitamins and minerals. And to balance this out, we look at why having too many or too much of the 5 fertility foes, as I've named them, will be negatively impacting their hormones and moving them further away from getting them to where they want to be, which is becoming a mum. And it's equivalent to my favourite quote: if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So if you continue to eat and drink what you've always ate and drank, you'll continue to get what you've always got, and in this case, infertility. And so I suggest that it's time that they shake things up a bit and make changes to really get what they want. So the 5 biggest culprits, as we all know, are sugar, gluten, dairy, if you have an intolerance to it, caffeine and alcohol for trying to conceive. They all cause inflammation. They have very little antioxidants that we know help drive the energy production, especially what's important for fertile health. They, of course, especially the sugar, disrupts our blood sugar levels, leading to a hormone imbalance. And in relation to fertility, high insulin can lead to high testosterone in the ovaries where it's produced, and it can therefore prevent ovulation. And so I still use this to this day, because as simply as it is, if we put those fertile-friendly groups together, ultimately this is what our daily intake does begin to look like. And it's a really nice visual for my clients to be able to see what that actually looks like. It's important to add that, when you're trying to repair hormone balance and polycystic ovarian syndrome in relation to fertility, we treat the second half of a woman's menstrual cycle as if she is pregnant. That's how our body's hormones typically work. So with that comes changes in appetite. Our hormones will govern how much more food a woman wants to eat when they're in that second half of the cycle. So there are higher energy and nutrient demands, and we take that into account as well. And so within 6 months of trying for our second baby, I did fall pregnant naturally, and she was born in 2019. Thank you. So fast forward 2 years later, she's 2.5 now. I'm now helping other women and their partners make significant life changes to their diet, lifestyle and environments to overcome their infertility and associated conditions that make it really difficult, like PCOS. And so I created the Living a Lifestyle programme, a bespoke programme that has 4 core principles. So Nourish, we look at a diet that is anti-inflammatory, antioxidant rich, and manages blood sugar levels. We track ovulation, identifying that fertile window and restoring full menstrual cycle health. And looking at within their environment, we cleanse the environment, eliminating toxins, and especially those hormone disrupting chemicals that actually start mimicking hormones like estrogen once they're in the body. And then, of course, finding balance, managing that stress, helping women and the partners improve sleep, and being active, not to the extremes like I was, and also just being active in a way that they enjoy. So thank you for listening to my story of how I overcame infertility with real foods and how I've turned my personal experience into helping others realise their dream of becoming a mum. I hope I caught up a bit of time there. If there's any comments, I'm happy to take them.